We're back at YCS Bochum, and I have been promoted to card holder. Here I got a couple of good cards that Rob is going to talk about to run us through the popular decks this weekend, so you know what to expect on the stream. And well, also if you're playing in your local hobby league or something, or at a regional to qualify for the European Championship. So pick a card, Rob.
Oh, let's start with this.
All right, this is the elephant in the room, I guess. Necros of Brionek. What's so good about this card?
Well, it lets you search out pretty much, I believe it's the monster cards is that, and then Clausus lets you search out the spell cards as well. So it just makes Necros incredibly consistent. But if you want to show all three of the Necros cards that you've got there, just quickly.
Those are the three Necros cards, really. Whoops. We got the Brionek, we got Trishula, and we got Valkyrus.
Now, they have, all of the cards are hand traps, meaning, you know, you're not really looking... You can't really expect what's in the hand there unless they've been searched out. Valkyrus is stopping attacks from the hand. Gungnir is stopping monsters from being destroyed. Trishula is stopping cards from being affected. So you've got this massive wall and barrier, and the biggest thing that Necros do is the Djinn lock, which is if they use Djinn as a ritual material, they're going to stop your opponent's special summoning as long as that ritual monster's face up.
And there are a couple of decks, and by a couple I mean all of them, that rely on special summons.
Pretty much. I mean, you're looking at, to counter that, maybe like Book of Moon, Book of Eclipse, but things that sometimes don't necessarily target, but will still flip that monster face down or get it off of the field.
That's pretty much it, right?
Yeah. I mean, in the mirror, it is the be-all and end-all.
Yeah.
If you've got a Djinn lock against each other, then there's not much point anymore.
It is still interesting because there's a lot of psychology going on. Some players have the Djinn lock in their first turn, but don't do it because they want their opponents to use their options against it first and then bring it out. And some players say, my opponent's only going to play 3 or maybe 4 answers to the Djinn lock anyway. If he doesn't have them in his hand, I'm just going to go for it straight away. So there is something to talk about. It's quite interesting, but of course, this is not the only deck.
Now, something else that's interesting about Necros, sorry, just to go back to it, is they got hit in the Forbidden and Limited list.
Yep.
Unicorn and... Brionek, sorry. And Brionek and Preparation of Rites got hit in the Forbidden and Limited list.
Right.
People have started replacing those with hand traps, effect veilers, maxis, things like that. So it's going to be interesting just to see how people play a little bit differently now that they've lost the searches and wanted a little bit more utility. There's also going to be a lot of interesting tech choices as well. All right,
so let's wrap it up for Necros. It's super consistent, very, very flexible, and it's got a couple of power plays as well with Trishula, mostly. All right, what else do we have? This is another blue card, but a slightly different blue. It's a El Shaddoll Construct. How come that Shaddoll is suddenly popular?
Now, Shaddoll have always been good, but they were kind of just missing that little thing that was going to make them just a little bit better. Now, we're going to talk about the main reason why in a second. It's the Star Seraph cards.
Okay.
Star Seraph Scepter and Star Seraph Sovereignty. Basically, you can set up a chain so that you're able to special summon 3 monsters and draw 3 cards.
Yeah, and you don't have to have any... What kind of preparations do you have to set up?
You only need to have Scepter and Sovereignty, and that is it. And you are able to bring out...
2-card combo for how much damage?
Well, you're drawing a lot of cards, and you're then able to Xyz summon 4... a level 4 monster, Xyz that requires 3 level 4s.
Okay, so that's pretty good.
So it's huge. I mean, you've got a few options with that as well, which is... these. You got a Heroic Champion.
There you go.
I cannot say that name at all. And
Ouroboros? Oh, you mean this card?
Yes.
This card is a Rongomuniad.
Yep.
Rongomuniad.
There you go.
It's basically like Vincent Rolambomiadana's name.
Okay. And you also have Evil Swarm Ouroboros. So you have a lot of options with both those cards. They're incredibly hard to get rid of. And Ouroboros just has so many options for you. Discarding cards, bouncing cards, banishing cards. So you have exactly what you need in that card.
It's like a Swiss toolbox, really. The Swiss army knife.
Now, with all that, you still have your Construct, you still have Winder, stopping all of the special summons, which is huge again. And it's actually very, very good to be able to be countering your opponent's Star Seraphs as well, because you can only special summon once a turn.
Since those guys are rank 4 Exceed monsters, they are not just good in Shaddoll, right? You mentioned there's a different deck that is...
There is. I mean, another powerhouse for the weekend is going to be Tellarknights.
There you go.
Now, Tellarknights have the old way of just bringing out guys that require 3 level 4 monsters anyway, which is usually things like Triver, which bounces all cards on the field to hand, and also Deltaros.
Yes.
Which destroys cards and lets you draw cards, basically. It's really, really good. Now, they took that because you can play any of the cards. One of them special summons a monster from your hand when it's summoned. One of them special summons one from the graveyard.
There was Unukalhai, there was...
Vega, Altair,
Altair.
and Geneb also then searches a card from your deck.
Yeah.
So with Call of the Haunted, things like that, you can set that up immediately.
Right.
But then when you've got the Star Seraph cards, you've got another way of doing it that also draws you cards.
Right.
So you've got huge advantage all within that deck. And because you only really need one card to kick off the combo.
So it's also very... It's not... Is it as consistent as Necros?
It is incredibly consistent, but that's mostly because all of them are, I believe, warriors, so you're able to use reinforcement with the armor, all of the old tools.
You can search them out.
Yeah.
Right. That's it pretty much for the cards that we have here. However, there are a couple of other decks that we're going to see this weekend. What about Burning Abyss?
Burning Abyss are still incredibly good. People are trying different things like adding Infernoid to it, so that'll be interesting to see as well. Simply because Infernoid monsters, after they come out, 'cause you can dump them in the graveyard with Dante, you contribute them off to use their effect and carry on using your Burning Abyss effect.
What else do you think we're going to see this weekend?
There's a lot of interesting things. As I said earlier, I want to see Gladiator Beast come back with passion. It'll be good. I'm happy.
So there you have it. We have a couple of decks to expect, of course. We have a couple of like rogue decks that we are not quite sold on the number. They might end up on 5% of the field, but in the end they might sneak one or two guys into the top 64, and then it's anybody's game, really.
Yeah, definitely.
So it's going to be an exciting event this weekend. Don't just think, oh my god, we're going to see Necros so much. In fact, when I thought about how to beat Necros, this is how I ended up with the grey hair here. So it is a powerful deck, but you're definitely not out of options. There are other decks that are just as good. So, well, let's move on to the next feature match and see what we're going to see there, right?
Yep, definitely.
All right, so don't go anywhere. We're going to be right back with more action from YCS Bochum.